I think for a lot of people, we're wondering, are we racist? Are the things that we're saying just ignorance? Are people being too sensitive? Or do we need to really take inventory of the things that we think about other people and change and shift into something that's more positive? What I'm hoping is that you understand that, yeah, we are all people who discriminate, and that includes me. Let's throw out the idea of racism and just think about this behavior as something that might not be positive, that might not be helping, and check in and see if you have these thoughts or ideas that are really not helping in the fight for equality and inclusion and diversity. One of the thoughts that you might be having is that you're just sick of it, that you've been hearing about racism so much that you feel sick of it. You don't want to deal with it anymore. You want to escape it. You want to stop thinking about it. You really just want it to be over. If you're in that place, then you are feeling like you are separate from the situation. You aren't identifying with what's happening in your community. You feel like this thing is happening to someone other than you. When you feel disengaged from something negative that's happening to someone else, that separation allows you to feel like it's not your problem. And when something's not your problem, you don't have to work on it. As painful as it may seem, it's really important that we feel like everything that's happening to a person in our community is happening to us, that we're all interconnected, and that equality for everyone is so important. If this situation or these issues feel new to you, like there's something that you never had to deal with the frequency that you are right now, sit with the stress, and instead of hoping it will go away, work to make it go away. Find out what is going on in the community. Find out if people are being treated differently, and see what you can do to take steps to make changes, whether it's just verbal support, financial support, your physical support. Everything you do will make it better for you in the long run, because whatever's happening to your community is happening to you. Similarly, if you just want to move forward, if you want to skip the steps of the work and move forward and not talk about why we are where we are and what injustices happened, then you're in that same situation where you're not identifying with people who are different than you. Just imagine that you're in a relationship with someone and that person hurt you over and over again. Then they realize that it's a problem, but they just want to move on. They don't want to hear about how you're hurt or what happened to you. They just want to move forward and pretend like it didn't happen. You would have a hard time trusting in the intentions of that person. That's why it's important to take the steps to heal and change and build together. As hard as it might be for you, don't rush the process. Make sure that we've covered all the steps necessary so we never have to be in this situation again. A third situation that comes up all the time is that feeling that you want to change the subject. So when we're talking about a movement like Black Lives Matter, or we're talking about injustices that happen in a community, and you hear about it, you've been hearing about it on the news or from various people, maybe in your social media feeds, your reaction deep down is to reprioritize this thing. You don't want it to be at the top of the heap. You reprioritize it so that all lives have to matter, or police officers' lives have to matter, or just another thing like what's happening in your community or another issue across the globe. When you feel that drive to take that issue off of the top billing and put something else there, you need to really ask yourself why. Why can't I give this issue the attention that it deserves? What is making me uncomfortable about it? And I don't know what it is. It could be that you feel like the people aren't deserving. Perhaps you feel like it's just too messy of a situation. I don't know that it matters so much why, as that you have a realization that you're trying to take the attention away from that issue. If you feel that way, challenge yourself to make space for this issue to have some time, some attention, some work done on it. The fourth one is a tough one. It's very, very common, easy to spot, but it can be really hard to change. And that's when you use exceptionalism when it works for you. Maybe you say, I'm not racist because I have these friends and they are a different color than me, or they have a different culture or ethnicity than me. But what might be happening is that you're thinking that you have these people, but they're kind of different than those people who live in a different part of society than you. So you know these people, but they kind of act like you. They've figured out how to work with you and be like you. And you've not really built skills to deal with people who look different, but also act different. And the other side of it is when you create exceptionalism for bad behaviors. When you say there's a few bad apples in the bunch, you're kind of trying to say, ignore the bad apples so we can have harmony with the bunch. Do you see what I'm saying? On one side, you say, there are a bunch of bad apples, but I associate with these good apples, so I'm good. And then on the other side, you say, ignore the bad apples because I want to be connected to the bigger group. In either situation, you're counting the apples so that it fits the way you want to think about it. What I challenge you to do is think that everyone should be held to a high standard of equality, of inclusion, of freedom and order in a positive way. And if you're working the numbers so that you can feel better about it, then you might need to think about whether or not you're having those feelings of superiority that eventually lead to racism. The fifth one that is so natural and understandable but problematic is when you feel that saying you're not racist is more important than actually questioning your behavior. This is a time when you have some space to look in the mirror and ask yourself, do I have some racist tendencies? Have I allowed some microaggressive behavior to be in my life when it doesn't really need to be there? It's not really positive. If you're more concerned with what someone thinks about you and making sure that you're okay, rather than evaluating your behavior, then you're in a very dangerous place where you might actually have some things that you need to change, and they will pop up at the worst possible moments. Rather than worrying about whether you're not racist, it would be better to think that you come from a culture that is kind of naturally discriminating. Maybe all human beings are that way. And take a look in the mirror and figure out whether you have fear of other races, whether you have a feeling that you are better than someone, whether you're judging people for not being hardworking and not being aspiring, when in reality, maybe those people do not have the same chances, the same opportunities that you do. I get that it's scary to be called racist, but that is almost why it's so important to consider it for yourself. Listen, don't get hung up on the words. Really focus in on raising expectations of the way that you think. This is a time for learning. This is a time for growing and evaluating. Take advantage of the moment and become better. Consider the idea that everyone doesn't have the same chances, that everyone is not set up in the best possible way. Look at what people are really experiencing. And if you are seeing injustice, be a leader in your community and stand up for what is wrong. Don't ever get bored. Don't ever get too busy to see that things need to change. You are always going to be part of the solution. And if you are willing to evaluate yourself, then you'll become part of a positive shift in your community.